She's already been introduced, but she is the inimitable Sharon Reyes with incredible stories, that we have all heard so much about that come from her family that really bring the Rancho history alive. And we're just so lucky to have somebody who brings those stories down to the present day so that we can still know about it.
Okay, before I start with the program, or Nina starts first, I just wanted to tell everybody the reason that we are in this building tonight. And it's because I'm very passionate about history. I'm very passionate about old buildings. And my cousin Debbie and I walk here all the time. She grew up here. And this land was donated by the Tegner family in the 1900s. And Virginia Tegner was a wonderful, wonderful friend of my father's. And I wanted to bring everyone in here because a lot of people have never seen it. And also the Shotgun House, because the Conservancy, to me, they are really the driving force of saving old places and history. Also, I want to thank Susan and Cecilia Tovar, and Robert's not here tonight. They are the librarians who have put this together, and we have to keep our libraries alive and open. I have 3 granddaughters. My granddaughter is here tonight, Monica. She loves the library. I've taken her to every library in Santa Monica, and it's really, really important that we keep them open, because when you open a book, it's called magic, and it's a treasure, and it takes you in another place. So I just wanted to let everybody know that this land was donated by a very special pioneer family. So I leave it to Nina.
Hi, everybody. That's why we love Sharon. She's got it going on. And our next event is going to be just about her father, because you wouldn't believe all of the things that he was a part of in his generation. So that we'll get there someday. So I'm actually going to just start by telling you a few little stories about the history of the Marquez-Reyes families before Santa Monica, and just basically how they got to the Rancho Boca de Santa Monica. So Francisco Reyes was a mulatto from Jalisco, Mexico, and he moved to Loreto and became a shipbuilder, building ships that were going to start sailing up the coast. And he became a leather jacket soldier. And in 1779, he joined the Portola expedition and traveled north to Santa Monica. So you can see they wore those leather coats because they had to go through that terrain covered with cactus everywhere, and there weren't always those nice paths. So that plate armor that they were wearing originally was just not suitable, and everything would get caught on it. So in Portola's journal, he actually sounds like quite a whiner and a complainer about that. It's kind of funny. So Francisco Reyes was stationed at several different missions, and he also, while he was a soldier, he was the guy who received the first Spanish land grant when Spain still was in charge of Mexico. And those land grants were not permanent grants, they were provisional grants, and eventually he got Rancho Encino, and they eventually took it back and built a mission there and so forth, but he was the first one to get one. He retired from the military in 1786, and a few years later he became the alcalde of Los Angeles, which is the mayor, but he only was seated for about a year. Apparently he was gambling and he was ousted, but a couple of years after that, he was elected as the mayor, and so he's actually the first elected mayor of the city of Los Angeles. And he served for a few more years before retiring and died in 1809. So his oldest son was Jose Antonio Faustino Reyes, and he also served in the military and was stationed at the Presidio in San Diego for a while, and married a woman named Maria Clara Dakota, She was part indigenous, and they lived in Los Angeles. So you can see there, that's the Plaza Church. This is the plaza, like where the Biltmore is, and we park under that park these days. It's a giant parking structure. That little street in the upper right is Olvera Street. So at the Plaza Church, they had a cannon, and it was a very small cannon, and they used it to salute the Virgin, to salute a new bride, for all kinds of festivals. It was, and that was the only weapon they had in California. They had a very comfortable life. But when they heard that the Americans were on their way and that they wanted to get their hands on California, they sent word down to Mexico saying, hey, we're up here, we need some weapons, we need some reinforcements, help us out, and nothing came. So Maria Clara Dakota de Reyes took that cannon and she buried it in the Reyes family peach orchard, just to keep it safe, because if soldiers started showing up willy-nilly, she wanted to make sure that they had that cannon in case they really needed it. So this was in the 1840s, by the way. So a little while later, some American ships came around the Horn and docked by Rancho San Dominguez. And about 300 soldiers came ashore and set up camp there with all of their supplies. And Jose Antonio Carrillo, who was one of the Californios, a relative of Sharon's, she has an incredible pedigree because she's both a Marquez, a Reyes, and a Carrillo. So Jose Antonio Carrillo got 25 of his bravest friends and their horses, and then they each brought a few extra horses, and they got the cannon from the peach orchard, and they came up over those hills and kicked up as much dust as they could, so the soldiers camped out below couldn't see that most of the horses didn't actually have riders. And they came over and they went around the back and they came over again, and they did it over and over again until those guys were so afraid that there were so many Californios coming for them that they hightailed it back to the ship and left. And they left all of their supplies behind. So the Californios were able to arm themselves and get a few other handy items that were very useful to them. So that was a pretty useful little cannon. And then they took it back, the ladies, they took it back and they buried it again. And it became known as the old woman's gun. And they actually dug it up one more time for another battle later on in the takeover, I guess, of California, the colonization of California by the United States. And so that's the story of the old woman's cannon.
Was it ever fired during
those
battles?
Well, not in that battle. In the second battle, they fired it. And the second battle was because John C. Fremont, who was the general who was sent in charge of all the troops, he was a pretty diplomatic fellow. So he showed up in Los Angeles and he had a big meeting with all the Californios, and he said, and they were like, Mexico didn't send anybody to help us and we feel kind of abandoned, and you seem a little more together, so if you guys will let us keep our land, then we're okay to go with you. We don't want to kill anybody. And he was like, okay. And so he left this guy, Captain Gillespie, in charge, and he went up north to Monterey to give the same spiel and hopefully get the same agreement. But Gillespie was not as nice as Fremont. And he was kind of a despotic ruler. And so if somebody like broke a little rule, he just really came back at them with really aggressive consequences. And they started to get really angry, and a little skirmish broke out, and they did blow off the cannon, and he basically ran down to Mexico. I'm not sure exactly how that helped him, but he left California and didn't come back. So Antonio Reyes, he had a younger brother whose name was Jacinto, and Jacinto Reyes was married to a woman, Maria Antonio Francesca Valentina Machado, and she was a Machado, which is significant. So they also lived in the pueblo, and they had a son named Isidro Reyes. He was the first Isidro Reyes. For those of you who are aware, there were several more. So Isidro Reyes, as an adult, he owned about 27 acres near the pueblo, probably in that area off around the edges. And he had a vineyard there, and he also had a business carting tar from the La Brea tar pits into the pueblo for people's roofs and so forth. And so he was, his in-laws, or his uncle, sorry, his uncle was at that time the owner of, he had the grant for the Rancho Boca de Santa Monica. So while it was still in his uncle's control, he and his wife went and built their first adobe there because they like to spend time there. And he eventually partnered with a man named Francisco Reyes, who was a neighbor of theirs in town, and they took over the rights to Rancho Boca de Santa Monica from the Machado family in 1839. So Francisco Reyes was an orphan, and he emigrated to Los Angeles in 1825 when he was a young man. This was after the Spanish period was over and Mexico was in charge of California. So he was basically a Mexican settler, and he was a blacksmith and opened a shop on Main Street. And oh, did I say Reyes? Thank you. I meant Marcus.
I was gonna tell you. Okay.
You know,
She would have figured
Marquez-Reyes, Marquez-Reyes. So many, and
All
so
the
many of them
famous
named
men.
Francisco too. Okay, Francisco Marcus was an orphan, came over, blacksmith. His shop was, like I said, next door to the Reyes family, and that's how they got to know each other. They became friends. Francisco Marcus was actually 15 years older than Isidro Reyes, so they weren't quite contemporaries, but I guess they got along okay. So they got the rights from Uncle Machado, and I forgot his first name. I'm not getting a response, so we don't know his first name, which Machado that was. Might have been Ignacio. Anyway,
I think it was.
yeah, I think so too, but I'm not sure. Anyway, so, and about 11 years after they secured the grant, Francisco Marcus passed away. And that was in 1850, so right around, when California became a state. So his wife was Roque Valenzuela. So Roque outlived him by many, many years. She actually remarried and became a Garcia, and she had many, many children, and she's really considered by many people to be the matriarch of both the Reyes and the Marcus families because of all the intermarriages between those families because they were so close. So her son Pascual in particular who was an important person in the family, was married to a Reyes, for example. And also her granddaughter Ramona was married to a Reyes. So Boca de Santa Monica, on this map that you're about to see, extends from the boundary of Santa Monica all the way to Topanga Canyon, and the far corner is Calabasas, actually. And so in 1873, Isidro Reyes's widow and her 7 living children deeded their share of the rancho. Well, that's orange on my computer. They deeded their share of the rancho to Robert S. Baker, who became one of the founders of the city of Santa Monica. But it was still an unpartitioned share. I'm not sure why, when they finally partitioned, it ended up being only about a third of the total, but someday I'm gonna figure that out. But, so a few years later, because Baker didn't want to be in business with the Marcus family, he had his own plans, they went to court and had it legally partitioned. And so the 5 living Marcus heirs each got their partitions. And you'll see there are little cutouts in the Baker-Reyes portion that different Marcus family members were also allotted, because the families shared the whole rancho before it was partitioned, and those were places where they had established homes, farms, even businesses, and so forth. So they were assured of keeping those parcels for themselves. So that kind of is how we set up the stage for Sharon's stories. And I'm going to toss it over to her now, and you won't have to hear so much from me with all my technical gibberish.
Okay, here I go. I need Minnie Shaw on for support. My Aunt Minnie Shaw, that she gave me when I was 18 years old. Today, 186 years after Isidro Reyes and Francisco Marcos received the grant to Boca de Santa Monica, we are honoring the story of those pioneers. We are here because we wanted to be here, and because we believe that Santa Monica was the most beautiful spot on God's footstool. My dad wrote that. May we ever be cognizant that we have what we have because of those who came this way before us and who left us so rich a treasure of romance. This brief history of Rancho Boca de Santa Monica is dedicated to those families. It started with storytelling, which to me is very important. Then the stories were forgotten. When my father, Isidro Reyes IV, passed away, the stories I heard for my whole life from my aunt Hermanita Minnie Reyes and my father, Isidro Reyes, began to fade away. I am sitting up here, but I am not alone. I have the spirits of my ancestors holding me up tonight. There's Aunt Minnie. Storytelling is wonderful, and it is so important. 100 years plus, that's all they had. And then cameras came along, and photos were the next storyteller. Identifying these family photos wasn't easy. Many of the pictures you will see today, and many, many more, can be viewed in the Mexican Presence in Santa Monica collection in the Santa Monica Public Library Image Archives. Thanks to my cousin, who has since passed away, Cindy Morales, we worked 1 solid year together, identifying the collection that she had from her grandmother, Sophie, and along with my photo collection, we identified many relatives. We also had the help of our amazing cousin, who grew up in the canyon, Isabel Hutchinson, who is now in her 90s. She was so amazing. She had a memory we couldn't believe. I started gathering and building family trees with my dear cousin, Terry de la Peña and Joe Payton. We even took a trip to Loreto, Mexico to see what we could learn about the family there. And Marguerite was there too. Sorry, Marguerite. We reached out to more cousins, shared stories and pictures, and took DNA tests. Joe spent years at the Mormon temple digging deep, bringing the family back to life and reconnecting us with our lineage. And Terry de la Peña is the brains of the family, like this one here. To start at the beginning, the Tongva lived on the Rancho near Topanga Canyon and Malibu Canyon. During summer season, they gathered acorns and mustard seeds. They also lived on fish and wild berries and shared their food with the Rancho families. My Aunt Minnie told me that in the summer they built rafts out of the tule reeds. In later years, they used driftwood or native pine. They went to Catalina and Santa Barbara Island. The Rancho families watched them leave the shore but never went with them. When my Aunt Minnie showed me pictures, especially this one with the Whippets, her three cousins, Guadalupe Reyes, Pascual in the middle, and Frank Reyes, his son, I asked her, and the pigs in the background, and we started talking about rattlesnakes and how they could get into the adobe houses. What did you do, Aunt Minnie? She said, well, that's what the pigs were for. Do you realize what happens when a rattlesnake is stepped on by a pig's foot? The hooves are extremely powerful and can crush a snake. And if the rattlesnake bit the pig, its skin is so thick, it would kill the pig.
But Sharon, what's a whippet?
The whippets were their hunting dogs, and actually they were very fond of them, but they used them for hunting, especially rabbits.
And that's the Guadalupe Reyes who's married to a Marcus, right?
Yes, Terry's grandmother, right, Terry? Ramona? Yes. He was married to Ramona. And he actually perished in the pair, which I'll get into that.
You'll hear the pairs.
Reyes and Marcus both had homes and businesses in the Pueblo de la Reina de Los Angeles near 2nd and Main Streets. Francisco Reyes and had many ranchos to look after as well. At that time, the Los Angeles population reached 1,200 people.
Wow.
He grew weary of all the people that were coming into Los Angeles. Don Francisco's wife, Maria Antonio Machado, made up her darn mind one day to visit the Rancho Boca de Santa Monica, owned by her brothers, in order to get away from that city life. When traveling between the Rancho and Los Angeles, they didn't have a road to follow. During the dry weather, they used the short route which went through Rancho La Cienega, through today's Clover City and Palms, approximately along Washington and Adams Boulevard. When the weather was bad, they had to change the route to travel on higher ground through Westwood, Beverly Hills, or Hollywood. There was nothing but plain open space. The trip took almost a full day in a carreta. A carreta was a cart that had large wooden wheels that were cut from large trees, mostly sycamores. They were fitted with a large candle to guide them at night, a horn to startle animals out of their path, and a large supply of soap that was used to put on the axle to keep it from burning or squeaking. If they ran out of soap, they used cactus juice found along the way to lubricate the wheels.
Wasn't there a story about tapioca pudding and the wheels?
They always had tapioca pudding because they always had guests.
So they
used to
carried
take-
it in the carretas in case someone got hungry.
Yes.
Apparently it's a good lubricant in case you need to know.
If ever you're stuck on the road, have tapioca. Isidro Reyes built his house in Santa Monica Canyon at what today's intersection is of Chautauqua and Sunset Boulevard. He kept cattle, sheep, and horses, but wild animals, coyotes, bobcats, and mountain lions started to reduce his flocks of sheep and livestock. He decided to move a place that was safer for his animals. His second house is on the rim across the canyon, which is located today at 7th and Adelaide. That was where my Aunt Hermanita Reyes' father, Isidro Reyes II, was born. Both homes and roofs were made from cattails and tar that they hauled from the La Brea tar pits. 2 years later, Francisco Marcus built his home in the canyon at the location that is now on the site of the Little Santa Monica Cemetery, or today known as the Marcus Family Cemetery on San Lorenzo Street.
So how many Isidro Reyeses were there?
4
4.
that
Okay.
I know of.
And the last one was your dad?
Yes. In later years, as the ships came to the long wharf near Temescal Canyon, where lumber for the adobe homes, which improved the floors, the cattail and tar roofs were replaced with wooden shingles from the supplies bought in by the ships. The inside of the adobe home walls were covered with plaster made of mud, ashes, and straw. They made their own lime from fish shells they found at the beach. They would burn the shells during the night between layers of wood. When the ashes and shells were cool, they would press the ash together and then pat the walls with it.
Didn't a lot of the family members work at those wharfs?
Yes, they did.
What did they do there?
They worked hard on there, and I think I don't know exactly. Terry's grandfather worked on there, along with my grandfather.
Unloading cargo or something?
Yeah, and her grandfather perished on the Long Wharf.
Yeah. Oh, they were stevedores.
Yeah. When the families moved to Boca de Santa Monica, they missed their family relatives in the pueblo of Los Angeles. Hoping for visitors, they rode to the top of what is now and still is the Franklin Hill, which has a long view into the distance towards Los Angeles. They sent the youngest family member, who watched for dust in the distance, indicating someone was heading towards the canyon. They would rush home to share the news so the families could start preparing delicious pudding and red meats.
Tapioca.
The arriving families were exhausted from the jolts and bumps during their long carreta or horse rides by the time they arrived at the canyon. They were welcomed by the families who served them the feast they had been preparing. After the meal, dancing and entertainment could last for as long as a week.
So did they know that people might be coming and so they were just looking for them, or could people just come randomly at any time?
It was a tradition, I believe, to go up to the hill and see if company was coming.
So they didn't know to expect them, they just had to be on the ready in case. And then they partied for weeks, so they could be like partying all the time and never get back to work.
Hard.
Yeah, wow.
They really partied hard.
It was a good life.
In those days, there was no TV, no movie theaters, no radio. Fiestas were their entertainment. Families and friends from surrounding ranches came from miles away to enjoy each other's company. They celebrated just about anything, including weddings, birthdays, and more. Newborns were baptized at the San Gabriel Mission or at the Plaza Church in Los Angeles. The family returned to the Rancho after the ceremony to celebrate the baptism with the fiesta, with barbecues, games, dancing, and horse racing. At the dances, the ladies would make cascarones, which were decorated eggshells filled with confetti. They broke them over each other's heads. It was especially fun for young men who were courting the señoritas. Before there were wooden floors in the adobe, it was necessary to sprinkle the floor with water so the ground would become hard, packed so they could be in good condition for dancing.
In Arcadia Bandini's days, like back in the early Mexican era when everybody was rich and had everything going on, those eggs were filled with gold dust or perfume. So it was very extravagant.
Well, we just had confetti. Minnie and my dad and my father told me a lot of stories, and the Reyes and the Marquez families and their visitors. It was much more than just friends and relatives from Los Angeles who came for the great parties during the summertime and to camp and enjoy the beach in the canyon. Hosting visitors also became the family business. A bathhouse was built at the mouth of the canyon by Pascual Marquez. Dancing and picnics took place along the stream, which was land of both Reyes and Marquez. Los Angelinos came to the canyon to get away from the heat in the pueblo. They pitched tents and stayed up late in the evening, drinking and partying, while enjoying the beautiful ocean breeze, the shade of the sycamores, and the beautiful weather. In 1910, there was a family New Year's party in the Sawtell home of Dionisia Garcia de Valdez, Roque's daughter by her second marriage. It ended tragically when it turned out that a jar of canned pears that were preserved was spoiled, leading to the death of 12 members. One family member reportedly found the pears sour and spat them out and did not get sick. Others didn't show symptoms for 48 hours and then passed away. These factors aroused a suspicion of authorities that foul play was involved, but in the end, canning jars that weren't perfectly sanitized were confirmed as a cause of the deaths. The pair victims' bodies were moved in a single very long procession from St. Monica's Church to burial grounds. 3 were buried at Woodlawn Cemetery and the rest at the Marcus family cemetery on San Lorenzo Street. They were buried there along with many other relatives. The cemetery was landmarked through the activism of Ernie Marcus in the 1990s. My dad and I visited the site with Ernie in 2007 and found it overgrown with weeds. The family started organizing cleanups and other projects to upgrade the cemetery. The cleanups became bonding family gatherings. During that period, we learned that the land in front of the cemetery had been purchased and that the cemetery would soon be landlocked by private property. We took the neighboring owner to court and reached a settlement in 2011 that established an easement that preserved the entrance to the cemetery. An old statue of San Lorenzo and the cemetery's surrounding walls, built by John Byers, were restored. All Rancho men had to be great horsemen, and several fine riders visited the ranch. Their daughters were tempted by the handsome young caballeros who came to court them. Every year, the caballeros came to celebrate the feast, Dia de los Tres Reyes, Three Kings Day, in January with huge dances, big fiestas held on the patio of Isidro Reyes Adobe on 7th Street and Adelaide.
So Reyes means king.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I guess we all be queens. Wedding rituals in the old days began with the announcement of the engagement. The parents of the groom called the brides home to ask permission to marry. If consent was granted, a day of fiestas and rejoicing followed. To start the celebration, the couple stood in the middle of the room holding a lighted candle while being blessed by a priest, then by their parents, and the fiesta went on. The couples were either married at the Plaza Church in Los Angeles. The family traveled there in the carreta with a fast pair of oxen to make the trip in a single day. The carretas, decorated with flowers and colored shawls, were a beautiful sight, as was the bride in her white finery. At the church, there was music and guns were fired to salute the bride and her party.
The old woman's gun.
She had to put that in.
Had to say it.
After the ceremony, the family returned to the Rancho for another fiesta. A favorite wedding fiesta game began by burying a rooster in sand or short or soft dirt. Caballeros rode a long distance away on their horses and raced back while hanging over the side of the horse. Without stopping, they would try to grab the rooster by the neck and pull it out of the ground. Whoever got the rooster chased the other horsemen, trying to strike them with the rooster, causing great laughter. The Canyon School was then built in 1864. This is a very precious picture to me because everybody's name is on it, basically. That's taken in 1868. Most of the children went there. In the early days, nearly all the students were related. After a fishing village was established by the Long Wharf in 1898, Japanese children from there also attended the Canyon School. It still stands today as part of the Los Angeles Unified School District, Canyon Elementary School. I particularly love this picture because all the children are identified on the back.
And also because they all put their hats on that rock before they took the picture.
So closing, I want to say that walking the canyon grounds and the Pacific Palisades bluffs, that was once my family's land. I think about them and all the beautiful places they saw in the surrounding areas, with nothing around them but beautiful mountains and a beautiful ocean, and across that ocean, those curious islands. As I walk, which I do daily, I think about those days long ago. Yes, Santa Monica has changed in many ways, but the spirits of my family members still reside in Santa Monica. We all hold the memories of our Boca family. Telling our rich history and our memories ensures that our stories will be passed on to future Boca generations and all the rest of the people who live here. May they enjoy the beauty of living here in Santa Monica forever. The end.
So do any of you have any questions or stories?
Why do you think the ride from Santa Monica to one, the San Diego Mission, and two, how much, like the horseback ride, do you have any idea how long that would have taken? Because it seems like they were going back and forth all.
I think it was like a half a day maybe to Los Angeles, so maybe a day to get all the way to San Gabriel. That's my guess. It took 3 days to, well, yeah, but that's much further. They what? Oh, okay. They went on the buckboard, she said.
The first map that you showed, what were the eastern borders and southern borders of the Rancho?
The eastern border, it kind of goes through the mountains. So on the other side, there would be Brentwood and, other neighborhoods. It's not defined by certain streets that we know really.
All the way to Pasadena.
No, no, no. Oh, no, no, no. The top there is probably,
Okay.
yeah, it's like, yeah, the top is not, it's probably somewhere in Brentwood, like it's past 26th Street, but not all.
And then on the south?
That's the water, the ocean.
No, isn't that the western?
Well, it's at an angle, so I'm not sure what you mean
So
by.
the right side of the blue.
Oh, on this side, the right side of the blue is the city of Santa Monica.
Like the border of Venice and Santa Monica?
No, that's the Santa Monica Canyon. And so the north side, like San Vicente Boulevard, is just past the blue line.
Could you talk a little bit more about the relationship between the Tonga and the families?
Well, they were on the Rancho. I mean, of course they were there first. So I mean, we have stories. I think Terry knows more, that they were just ranch hands. Some of them, yeah, servants. Yeah, they were on the ranch, and they got along. I think we got along with them. Great friends. We don't know.
Well, generally, what I have found in some reports, I mean, it's really hard to know for sure, but these ranches were so big and there was so much unused little clusters of Indians just living there, and they lived off the natural land. It's not like they would take over and farm or anything. So they would just be left alone, and some of them would end up working for the families also and help them with the farms and so forth.
I was curious, in 1880, if they needed some specialty item, would the closest place to buy that, like a big market, be downtown Los Angeles?
In 1880, the city of Santa Monica was already established. But before that, it was Los Angeles. And before 1876, Los Angeles was kind of podunk because it wasn't really connected by railroad to the rest of the world. And so you really had to get all your really nice stuff from San Francisco.
Where the cannon ended up, did you say at one point someone blew it up so it could be used, or?
No, they buried it.
I know they buried, but.
Yeah.
So did it end up anywhere?
I don't know what happened to it after.
A famous gun like that would have been preserved.
Well, you would think, except that once the Americans actually colonized California, they had made all these nice promises to the Californios that they would be respected and would get to keep their land. But then the gold rush happened, and a whole bunch of really nasty, greedy people with picks and shovels showed up, and it didn't work out that way, and they weren't respected. And so things like that, I'm sure, just got lost in the shuffle. She asked if there's still Marcus people living in the West Side. I think there's quite a few in the room, actually.
Yeah, they're still here.
And Calabasas, is that the original location?
That was, no, that was before Machado. Mrs. Reyes, who was originally Machado, she got that Rancho Las Virgenes grant, and that was, so it was also their house, basically.
Arcadia Van Meeting.
What would you like to know about her?
You missed her talk.
Family.
How she related to this family?
Yeah.
Not much, because she was pretty fancy, and these were pretty, hardworking types. They were country folk. That's a nice way to put it. Yeah, she was like the queen of everything. So, she was very socially ranking. She was the richest woman in California. That boat is a reproduction that I found a picture of on the internet, and that group, www.nativeland.org, you can go there and find out what happened to the boat. I don't know.
My cousin Reuben built the boat, some of it. Didn't you, Reuben?
This boat?
No.
Were you
but
with Native other?
He was in Catalina building boats.
Yeah, but this is supposed to be a reproduction of the
Right.
kind of boat
Didn't you reproduce one, Reuben?
Not that one, but one very similar to it.
Yeah.
I wish I had a picture of yours.
He's got a newer one now.
Can you turn it back to the ox carts and the Rancho? Because that wheel's handmade.
Yeah, they're made out of solid pieces of wood with just another solid chunk of wood as the axle. Not that one, the next one. This is the traditional one. And that's why there was so much friction that they would actually start to burn if they didn't keep them well lubricated. So if there wasn't a cactus or a bar of soap around, they used the tapioca pudding.
Did people have their children at home on the ranch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but then everybody got baptized at the church in Elvira Street, or they got baptized at the mission, so.
They got baptized like that because the tradition was that they were afraid because babies did pass away, even though Nina says we were the strongest families in town. But the Catholic religion was that if they didn't baptize them right away, they would go to limbo.
No, they had to I think they traveled to the church.
They had to go right
They
away.
threw them in the carreta and split.
They had to really fast because it was a very scary religious tradition.
The original St. Monica's Church was on 3rd Street.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. 1886, and then it moved to the present St. Monica's location in, I think, 1920.
Was St. Anne's built before St.?
No, it was built in 1908. So in St. Monica's, that was around when the Mexican Catholic population started to really grow fast. And so basically they needed another Catholic church. Well, originally it was a chapel because it was just part of St. Monica's. And there were some racist undertones about not wanting to go to church with the new Mexican immigrants and all that.
Yeah.
Just on the church thing. So my great-grandmother's parents got married at the church in Elvira Street because St. Monica wouldn't have been built yet. Is that what everybody was doing?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. In fact, that one picture that is of my great-great-grandmother, that was taken on Bernard Street in Los Angeles, and she was married at the plaza. Most of them were. Most of them were.
Okay.
Well, thank you for coming, everyone. And